This is the Xbox Series X. Now, this and the Series S have been out since 2020, technically, but that kind of hasn't been true because it's been really difficult to get your hands on them. But that didn't stop me from getting this around January of 2021. But this isn't a review of the Xbox Series X. Instead, we're actually going to talk about Xbox as an organization, or kind of how it's being transformed into Microsoft Gaming, which Xbox is technically a division of. Gets a little messy if you think about it too hard, but we're just going to talk Xbox is the organization that we're talking about. The past 10 years or so have been kind of hit or miss for Xbox as a whole. The launch of the Xbox One was botched, and there was a lot of backtracking and no backwards compatibility with the previous generations, but it was pretty easy to see the strategy and vision that Xbox had going into that generation of gaming. They wanted the Xbox to be the one thing that you use in your entire living room, whether it's for cable, for gaming, for streaming, whatever it may be. The Xbox is the one thing that you're going to use. That's why it was called Xbox One. Otherwise, outside of that context, the name made absolutely no sense whatsoever. But that's not what people really wanted out of the system. It didn't make sense to plug all of these things into the machine that you used to play Halo and Minecraft. People at the time wanted a dedicated gaming system that was relatively inexpensive and could play games at decent quality. Also, it didn't help that it came in at over $100 over the PlayStation 4 because of the included Kinect sensor, which was eventually scrapped. All of the goodwill that Microsoft had earned with the Xbox 360 was tarnished seemingly overnight as the hubris of the top executives at Xbox kind of thought that they could do whatever and get away with it. When asked about the notable absence of backwards compatibility in the system, which was a big selling point of the Xbox 360, executives were quick to diminish the need and want for it from players altogether. And even the then president of Xbox at the time, Don Matrick, said in an interview, "If you're backwards compatible, you're really backwards." And even went so far as to say that if players wanted something that was backwards compatible, they should just buy an Xbox 360. That's not a great move. This brings us to when the ship started to change course. 2014. Xbox is without someone to lead it, and in steps Phil Spencer, who had been with Microsoft since 1988. What the entire organization needed was one driving vision. According to the former president of Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, he had this to say about Phil Spencer. They needed someone who could rally the troops around a passion for gaming and to sell that internally within Microsoft. And that's exactly what he did. Phil Spencer is just a part of the many-year process the organization needed to change into one that's healthful and sustainable for the long term. And to his credit, he still is adamant about the changes that need to be made and how the company can grow. But one of the central themes that seems to be the driving factor within the organization that is Xbox is to put the player at the center of gaming. You hear this at press conferences, at events, you see it on promotional material that they have on their website and everything. It is a central theme that is a guiding vision for them as a company. And another thing that you'll hear thrown around a lot is when everyone plays, we all win. And it seems like they're doing exactly that. In 2015, Xbox announced that they are doing backwards compatibility on the Xbox One with previous generations of Xbox games through software emulation. And as of today, that list is over 600 games long. And that doesn't include all the Xbox One games that play on the Xbox Series X and S. You can play games that are 20 years old on this thing just by putting in the disc. That's amazing. In 2017, Xbox announced Xbox Game Pass, a subscription that starts at $10 a month that you can access and play an ever-updating library of games and download it onto your Xbox and just play. In 2018, Xbox announced the Xbox Adaptive Controller, a controller that allows those with physical disabilities to plug in any device that they need so that they can game even with a limited range of motion. In 2019, Xbox announced their cloud gaming service, which went through a period of beta testing and eventually released in 2020. These are just examples of the larger point I'm trying to make here, is that when you unite a team, be it big or small, around a central unifying vision, the organization can thrive and it can grow in ways that aren't just based on monetary value. But what is vision? Is it just a catchy phrase that you say at your company and organization to try to make people think that you're doing something right? Well, in a way it can be, but more it's the direction that you're heading in. This is the same across the board. Whether you're in the business world, part of a church, or just your personal life in general, Having a vision sets the direction that your life is heading in. Some may call it their why, and that's a pretty accurate depiction of it. Simon's next book, Start With Why, outlines the need for any organization to have this driving, unifying purpose behind it. Imagine you're in the passenger seat of a car. No one is in the driver's seat, the car's set to neutral, and you start rolling down a hill. If you don't have a driving force, someone to steer or apply the gas and brakes as needed, you're probably heading into something dangerous, although you can generate a lot of momentum that way. But when you have control of the direction of your organization, even when the road gets bumpy, you'll probably be okay. That's not to say that vision is the end-all be-all of your organization. It's not. It's the starting point. But when you have that direction figured out, and when you have your why set in place as an organization, you're probably going to find people along the way that have the same general sense of why and want to be a part of fulfilling that vision. John Maxwell has said, most people don't lead their life, they live their life. I'd go a step further to say most organizations don't lead their people, they work them. And that's usually a result of either trying to get the best bottom line as possible, make the most profit, or they just have a lack of direction and a lack of vision in their organization. Vision is the intentional direction that you or your organization is heading in. It's when you're on top of a mountain and seeing off in the distance and pointing and saying, we're going in that direction. And organizational culture is found in the process of leading people in that specific direction. So if we're looking at Xbox as an example of this, the purely monetary drive probably wouldn't be to create things like the adaptive controller and promote accessibility within the industry. But the culture and vision of when everyone plays, we all win, and putting the player at the center of gaming shows that their moves aren't just about making money. The culture of the organization is one that chooses the player, even if it cuts into the bottom line. That is why Microsoft has been making these insane multi-billion-dollar acquisitions of companies like Bethesda and Activision. They're putting the giant catalog of games that these publishers have onto Game Pass so that they can say, hey, do you want to play this on your phone through streaming? Do you want to play it on your laptop through streaming? Do you want to play it on your PC? Do you want to play it on the Xbox that we have here that's nice and shiny and new? You can play it wherever, whenever. Now, for yourself, the culture that you might have would just be to simply remind yourself of your personal vision every day or every week, just to get a sense of how am I getting further along and progressing towards this vision. For myself, my personal vision in life is to help others find and follow Jesus. And while this isn't going to be a channel dedicated to preaching at you every single week, I'm also not going to shy away from my faith in these videos. That personal vision of mine looks different in different situations, and yours will too. But we're going to get a lot more in depth on the topic of personal vision in another video down the road. Now, this video hasn't been a review of the Xbox Series X, and you don't actually have to even buy this system, because you can get Game Pass on your phone or your laptop or your PC. And yes, you can buy this nice, shiny, new system, but you don't have to. There are so many ways to game in the Xbox ecosystem that the vision of putting the player at the center of gaming is actually a tangible vision that you can see lived out within that organization right now. They're not without their shortcomings, but the benefits of having a clear vision that even someone outside the organization can clearly ascertain the elements of it shows the strides that Xbox has been making in the past decade. There are so many books on leading, organizational change, and vision that we could talk about this for a very, very long time. And we'll get into plenty of topics like this in the future of the channel. And I've created a playlist so that when those videos come out, if you have that playlist saved, you can just watch them all and see them all the way through. So if you like this video, click the like button. If you like PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo better, or if you want to talk organizational change and development, leadership, all those things, or if you have thoughts on the next video you want to see, just let me know down in the comments below. I hope you've learned something from this video and that it's given you perspective, and I'll catch you guys real soon in the next video.